more for you, you feel it. You know it. This is your life, and it's time to go from contender to champion. This is the show. John Madsen.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, John Madsen. This is the show. Go on over to johnmadsen.com. Check out our site. If you like Athletic AF, the messaging and stuff, we do have a store there. Also, don't forget to get on to the newsletter VIP list. I've been telling you guys that for a long time, and you're probably thinking, John, you've said that 15 times in the last 15 podcasts, and I haven't gotten one email. Well, I am going to start doing that. And I say that with a chuckle because I've meant to build that list up a little bit. I was waiting for the website, and then it's just a matter of doing it just like this podcast. So I'm telling you, on Monday, when you open up your inbox, if you're on that list, you will get that. It will actually technically be the second newsletter because I launched a practice one probably 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago. And now you're going to get it every week. And so that's part of my process now moving forward. So if you haven't done that, go do that, and you'll be updated on all things the show, all things Athletic AF. I have some exciting things coming down in the future. And, what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about a few things. One, I'm going to tell you where I'm at in this business and what I'm doing. This is the first week of December where I'm going through retrospectively and extracting all the learning lessons that I possibly can from 2020. And then I'm going to set my 2021 intentions. I'm going to set my 2021 goals. And if there was one mistake that I made in 2020, I remember where I was. We stayed at an amazing resort in Deer Valley, Utah for New Year's last year, me and my wife, and we did our planning there as a place to kind of get inspired. And as I look back, I can't believe how fast a calendar year goes. Now I'm in Scottsdale recording in a podcast studio. We were living in, a suburb of Salt Lake City last year at this time. 2020 was the greatest single year for my personal development in my life, as far as my financial, success, as far as my relationship success. 2020 was an incredible year. And, you might be thinking like, John, there was this whole virus thing, and there was this division and this rioting and this protesting and this fucking news cycle and the fake news and the fake media and, mental health and this and that. And look, I don't need to tell you that I don't need to tell you that I have empathy and compassion for anybody and everybody who's lost businesses, who have lost lives, who have done, who have got decimated by this weird, wild, stupid fucking year of 2020 with all of the negative stuff that's gone on. But I'm not going to apologize for the fact that I personally had an incredible fucking year. Incredible in so many ways. Yes, the negativity of all the other stuff is irritating, right? And the whole reason I tell you that is because if you're asking how, the reason is because I wrote big fucking checks that other people deposited in their bank accounts, but I got the return. And what I mean by that is I got the wisdom, I got the knowledge, I got the understanding, I got the game plan, I got the blueprint. And, whether it's fitness, finance, and relationship, I had coaches, and I got to extract just fucking knowledge and wisdom and skill sets. I got the ROI on that. Yes, it went into their bank accounts, whether it was Bank of America or Wells Fargo or a credit union or Bitcoin. Like I said, got all the ROI, razor sharp mentality, bulletproof certainty, skill set in language. The list goes on and on. My only regret is that I didn't I didn't plan big enough for 2020. Like I could only see as far as I could see. And there was this number in my head that I was like, if I hit that, I'll be so stoked. And then we have all this stuff go on, but guess what? It didn't really affect me at all. I was already on this track, right? I was already all in on myself. I believed up until like, as I'm doing this retrospective in December, the first week of December, 2020, so that I can plan for 2021. One of my principles extracted is that I got to think bigger. I have to think bigger because I got to think bigger than maybe that vision can see. And I've said this analogy in the past on a podcast. If you're in a car and it's pitch black and there's no street lights and there's no moonlight and there's no starlight, and if you have your lights on, right? You have your lights on, you can only see as far as those lights go. Maybe that's 10 yards, 20 yards. And then you have the high beam where you could turn the switch and the high beam goes on. And then you could see a little bit farther and a little bit wider, right? And I think that what I did in 2019 going into 2020 was I turned those high beams on a little bit, and then I could see the dream and the vision at the end of that high beam. And I was like, man, that's kind of stretching my comfort, but that's where I'm going to go with it. And so I wrote it down, which most of you don't do, which you should do, is write your goals down. And we're coming up on the end of the year, and I'm going to hit those goals, or I'm going to get really close. Doesn't really matter to me. Like I again, like we pretty much, went 3x, 4x, what was normal. So, with that being said, the principle and the analogy that I'm using this time is there's a faith component. Now there's this faith component and courage component. Now I'm going to choose a vision, and I'm going to think into the future farther than that high beam goes. I'm going to think farther than that high beam goes. So I know that now as we move, and my analogy in the past has been like, look, you might only see that far, but as soon as you start driving, it gets farther and farther. Right. And that's the whole point of this is as I started getting closer to that goal, where at one point it was as far as I could see, what started to open up is a whole new ocean of possibility. And that light kept extending. So I kept seeing other opportunity. The hard part is where you are right now. You can only see as far as those lights will shine. And so as I'm going to cultivate this intentional plan for the 2021, my thing that I'm going to do better is I'm going to, from the beginning, shoot farther. I'm going to, it's okay that I can't see it because I know it's out there. And so, that's an analogy I want you guys to all think about as you plan for 2021, as you write goals down, right? As you write goals down. And the flip side of that, and part of what I want to talk about for the next couple minutes to close this show out, is expectations, right? Expectations. Because there's this, on one end of the spectrum, you have somebody like John telling you, like, you got to think bigger, man. You got to think bigger, right? It's like me when I was 5 years old and wanted to be a professional athlete and skipped high school football altogether and still scored touchdowns in the NFL. I had this vision that was farther than most people could see. Maybe I could see it, maybe I couldn't, but that was big thinking for me, right? What would have been bigger than that would have been like Super Bowl champion or Hall of Famer, right? I had this vision that ended at playing a professional sport. So on one side, you have people saying, look, you got to think bigger, right? You got to believe bigger. You got to see bigger. And then what I'm about to say next sounds like a contradiction, and in a way it is, but it's not the way that I think about it. Expectations. So now we have to manage this vision with proper expectations, because setting the wrong expectation is the killer of dreams, right? Setting the wrong expectation is the killer of dreams. And so if you think about this in fitness, right? And, somebody comes into my program and they've been, kind of overweight for 5 years. They want to get healthy. Like, the expectation that they're going to look like me in a year is not the right expectation. It's not the right expectation, right? Or let's say that I want to look like one of the Instagram influencers that I see pictures of, right? And this Instagram influencer is clearly on performance enhancing drugs. And I'm not willing to inject myself with performance enhancing drugs, and I'm trying to do it naturally. Well, there's a certain level of reality that, like, look, if I'm not going to go down that road, then this is about as far as your potential is going to take you. And if you want more than that, after you've put in all the work, after you've, put all the work into the training and your nutrition and all of that stuff, and you've optimized, there's just a certain level that if you want more than that, then you're going to have to either betray your principle of not wanting to do that to get that, or you're going to have to temper your expectation, right? And so on one hand, you have to think, like I say, like, shoot for the moon, right? Shoot for the moon, think bigger. And that was one of my big lessons in 2020. However, the expectations have to be set. So how do you do that? And how do you balance that? Right? Like, if it's a revenue goal and I'm like, look, I want a 10x revenue. I want a 10x revenue. And then you have to wonder, is that an expectation that is, am I expecting too much? Because again, we know this, false expectation is the killer of dreams, right? And so people get discouraged if they go into something with the wrong expectations. If you're brand new to business, you're probably not just going to make 8 figures in your first year. If you're in the game for 5 or 10, you absolutely can do that. If you just start fitness, you're not going to look like your favorite Instagram celebrity in a year or maybe 2 years. You might be on a 10 fucking year plan. Because one of my favorite things that Tony Robbins has ever said has been, and somebody probably said it before him and he borrowed it, is that people overestimate what they can do in a year and severely underestimate what they can do in 10. I'm telling you, I actually underestimated what I could do in a year in business. But if I think about what I could do in 3 and I extend that to 5, and if I'm on this track and this journey to growth, and I'm willing to invest in myself and I'm willing to expand my skill set, and there's opportunities that I'm not even considering right now that are going to show up and I'm going to be ready to take advantage of. And I'm on that trajectory where things can happen really fast. But I put in 10 years already, a decade into business. I put a decade into my business. In fact, 10 years to the date, it took me to go from opening my doors to making 6 figures in a month. It took 10 years to the day, a decade. And there's people on this would be like, John, that's fucking slow, man. Like, that's slow. Some of you might be like 6 figures in a year, in a month. Like, I've never, and then there's other people. It's like, dude, I make 6 figures a day. Right. And I've surpassed, and I've beat that since. So what I'm trying to say is it's all relative. It's all relative. See, it's all possible. But there's some tricky things in this paradox of setting very high goals and then also on the flip side, having the right expectations. Because at the root of any of it, the reason it took me so long in this regard is because a person is never going to outperform their self-image. I've said that over and over. A person is never going to outperform their self-image. It took a lot of work for me to finally build my self-image up to this person who was capable of hitting this, right? And one of my other favorite people that I listen to, Jim Rohn, he used to always say, like, have a goal, like, don't have the goal to make $1 million for the $1 million. Have the goal to make $1 million to see what you have to become to make $1 million. And I used to never get that. I used to listen to it, and conceptually I got it, but I was like, just give me the fucking $1 million, man. Like, I know people are thinking like that. But what you have to become, and the confidence that you have to gain, and the certainty in your heart, and the courage you have to have, and the risk you have to take, and the resolve, and the resilience, and the fucking everything that gets you to that point, now it's in me. Now I can shoot for 10x. Now I can shoot for, whatever. And expectation then is tempered only by a person who cannot break goals into two different categories. I already know that I can set this vision, right? Call it 3x, 4x, 10x, whatever my vision is for 2021 as I extract it. I have to believe it's possible in a sense, or I'm not going to hit it, right? If I don't believe it's possible, I'm never going to hit it. So I have to set an expectation that is in the realm of my belief system, of what I'm capable of, and that I deserve it fully. And then from there, I got to focus after I set the big vision. I have to always have that there. So I'm focusing on what I want to happen. I didn't pack a parachute, meaning I'm not going to bail on this. I'm not going to bail at the first sign of adversity. There's no parachute. I got to go all in, right? And so I have this vision, but then the things that I focus on is the process goals. See, the thing on a day-to-day basis, it's not the weight, it's not the amount of money or revenue, right, that you can keep score of year after year. It's in the days and the details. You got to chunk down into the processes and focus on process goals. What do I do on a weekly basis? What do I do on a daily basis? What do I do on a monthly basis, right? So if we have this, let's just rewind for 1 second. You have this year-long goal, 2021. Now you break it down into quarters. What do I want to do in the first quarter? Okay, if I want that, then this is what I'm going to have to do on a monthly basis. From the monthly basis, what do I have to do on a weekly basis? From the weekly basis, it's what do I have to do on a daily basis, right? And so you start really, really chunked up, because if you don't focus on that, you're not excited. See, some people are too bogged down in the details, and you can't do it backwards, because the process goals don't excite me at all. If I looked at the processes, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do that. I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. I don't want to meditate every day. I don't want to do this, this, and this every day. I don't want to, have to sit down and record this, and this, as far as number of podcasts or whatever, right? Because those aren't the exciting things. I have to have this big vision that is like a fucking magnet that pulls me out of bed. And then from there, I got to chunk down into the little processes, right? Because then I'm doing the processes for a reason. And the end result is just a lag indicator of me doing or not doing the processes. The end result is just a lag indicator of me doing or not doing the processes. That's it. So when I talk about this paradox of setting a big vision and then tempering expectations, the expectations are going to ultimately come down to you. If you're just focused on the result and you're expecting some wild result, but you haven't broken down the processes and you're just hoping and wishing, that's going to cause a lot of anxiety, stress, and worry, right? That's going to cause a lot of anxiety, stress, and worry. Whereas a person who can set that, focus on the process goals, and go in with an understanding of realistic to you, okay? Realistic to you. It doesn't matter if I think it's realistic, right? Because you might be like, dude, I can't even ever imagine making 100K in a day. Well, I know it's possible because I have tons of friends who do it, right? So like realistic to you is 100% up to your programming, right? Your decisions, your upbringing, all types of stuff. So it's got to be those expectations set realistically for you. And then you have to understand that the result is just a lag indicator for all of the process goals. So if you focus on the process, you focus on the journey, and you focus on, if you're chopping down that tree, it's one more swing every single fucking day. You go out tomorrow, you take a swing. You go out the next day, you take a swing. You go out the next day, you take a swing. You never know when that tree's going to fall down. Okay. You never know when that tree is going to fall down. So the expectations have to be set, whether it's fitness or finance. You have to understand, like, look, If it's fitness and you're like, John, I want to join your program, like, how long is it going to take to look like this? Well, bro, it might take 5 fucking years of eating right and training right because you haven't done that. See, I've trained since I was 16 years old, right? This has been a 20-year plan. So my expectations are set. Like, it's just what I do. And in business, it's becoming the same thing. It's just what I do. So, I wanted this episode to come out because it's important not to do it as soon as January 1st when you're like, oh, now I got to plan. No, your planning for the next year starts now. So my takeaway here is to think bigger, one, to set enormous goals and start with that vision that you cast into the future that's realistic to you, and set proper expectations and wrap those expectations around the processes that you have to do in order to hit that vision, right? In order to hit that vision. And if you don't hit that vision and you can extract learning lessons from it, it was well worth it. You just learned at a faster rate. Bigger goals, even if you don't hit them, is going to force you to learn really quickly. If you turn your head and you don't want to dive into what you learned from it, it's a waste of time. See, if I set a big goal, have realistic expectations, and don't hit my goal, but I extract all the learning that I needed, you better bet that I put myself on a fast track for the next one and the next one. So no time is wasted unless you're not learning shit and you're just, living on this unconscious loop that literally keeps you stuck in the same place year after year after year. If you want massive growth, you have to be intentional.
Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode of The Show with John Madsen. The greatest compliment that you could give us is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all of your friends. So please go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and review, and then share it online with everyone that you know. Make sure to tag John as well. He loves to hear from listeners of the show. The links for all of his socials and iTunes are in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to engage John for anything related to his coaching, consulting, or programs, please visit johnmadsen.com for everything you'd need to know on how to engage with John offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Show.